NBC Sports Peter King over here on All Bengals. How you doing, Peter?
Lindsay, how are you doing? How's it going out in Cincinnati?
Not too bad. It really depends on how you look at the expectations for the Cincinnati Bengals. They sit at bye week at 5-4, and you know who I always start with is the quarterback, Joe Burrow. A couple weeks ago, you had a chance to chat with him, and obviously you've seen him 19 games into his NFL career. What have you really taken from number nine and any takeaways from his play and just speaking with him too?
We want our stars and the people who we expect to be the leaders and the bright spots on our team to basically have a stress-free introduction to the sport that they play, and if it's baseball, to come up and hit 320 and hit a bunch of home runs. But in football, I just think, as you've seen in the last few years, it is very, very rare that a quarterback will come up early on and really be great. And last year, I think Joe Burrow was on the way to being really, really good when he got hurt in Washington. And this year, I think mostly he's been very good. He's had a couple of games and a few throws that he'd really like to have back. But if you told me at the start of this year that the Bengals would go into the bye at 5-4, that Burrow would be healthy midway through his season with 20 touchdowns and whatever it is, 2,500 yards throwing, whatever his number is, I would say, where do I sign for that? And so I think in general, a young quarterback who's played at this level that Joe Burrow has so far, I think it's, 85% very, very good.
So you did mention a couple of the throws that he would like back. You can look at the interceptions. The interception number is high. He has been aggressive. He has a lot of star playmakers, wide receivers. We'll get to Jamar Chase in a moment. So you don't think the interceptions are a concern right now?
I don't think so, because in my opinion, the one thing you don't want to do with Joe Burrow, I know I've seen his face when he talks about interceptions. It's like saying, here, eat this cyanide pancake. It's just, he chafes at interceptions. He hates them. He's trying everything he can to not throw them. But I think if Zach Taylor before a game would go to Joe Burrow and say, now, Joe, be careful this game. You gotta go out and play. You don't want to make dumb decisions, but you have to be aggressive. I think one of the weirdest things is when you say about a quarterback is a game manager. And look, there are different quarterbacks that play the game differently. But I think when you say that somebody is a game manager, you're saying, now listen, any tight window, don't try to make that throw. The fact is, in the NFL, you're going to have to try to make a few of those throws. And if you can't make some of them, you're not going to be any good. And, I think I kind of like the advice that Andy Reid has for Patrick Mahomes, which is, in essence, now listen, don't be afraid to take checkdowns, but I trust you. Go out and make things happen, which I'm badly paraphrasing Andy Reid, but that's in essence how he treats Patrick Mahomes. And as you've seen this year, Mahomes has had some ups and downs, but he appears to be on his way back up. I just think that the position is very, very hard, and you've got very smart defensive coaches every week in the NFL. How is it that Jacksonville totally frustrates Buffalo's Josh Allen? How is it that Vic Fangio in Denver totally frustrates Dak Prescott of the Cowboys? I mean, they get paid too. It's one of those things that sometimes you look at baseball history and you say, well, let's see, David Ortiz was a great hitter. He was unbelievable. And you look and see that there's some pitcher you never heard of before who's faced David Ortiz 12 times and struck him out 10. I mean, how does that happen? I don't know. It's sports. So, and I think that's one of the reasons why we like it so much, because it's hard to predict.
One of Burrow's favorite weapons, and I'm going to give you credit because I talked to you around the draft time, and you were more on Team Jamar Chase. I was on Team Jamar Chase. This was nothing against Penei Sewell, but the team went wide receiver, and he has been a difference maker in a lot of games this season. Yes, his numbers have been low in the last 2 games prior to the bye week, but what do you think of this rookie right now?
I mean, I'll tell you, during the preseason, I started saying to myself, wow. I mean, you usually don't hear of receivers who, get, an attack of bad hands, and it looked as though he was in big trouble at times in the preseason. And from what you were reading about what you were seeing in practice. But having said that, I think when I asked Burrow about it, he had what I would call a derisive chuckle, meaning essentially that, okay, I have a little bit of respect for you as a reporter, so I'm going to answer your question. But what a dumb question that is. When I asked him, were you ever really worried about, Jamar Chase? And he really wasn't worried about Jamar Chase. And I think his whole point in basically talking about that the way he has, in basically not belittling people, but in basically saying, are you kidding me? Is that, and I'm not saying LSU is bigger than the NFL. It isn't. But this is a player who never had major drop issues at LSU, who was, I think, either the best or one of the best receivers to come out in years. And so to think that was going to be a continuing issue, is probably not a very logical way to think. But look, it's great. The one thing I think we didn't understand or think about all that much is that, I remember Tom Brady once told me after the Atlanta Super Bowl, when they came back from being down 28-3, what was so interesting is I said to him, hey, the wide receivers who you use late in this game to come back from this huge deficit, the wide receivers you use most were Chris Hogan and Malcolm Mitchell, both of whom are out of football and neither of whom did very much after playing with Brady. And he goes, because I said, why did you choose those guys? And he said, Peter, 111 practices. That's how many times I've worked with them this year. So if I ask them to go do a stop route, which is what we used a lot in that Super Bowl, I know precisely where they're going to be because we've worked at it maybe 30, 40, 50 times in practice every week of this season. So they've run that route so many times, I know exactly where they're going to be. And that is a huge advantage over even a great cornerback. So when Joe Burrow is able to have this kind of chemistry and has put in that amount of work with Jamar Chase back at his college level even, that is going to translate. That just doesn't all fly out the window. He's going to report to the Bengals, Jamar Chase is, with a built-in advantage over guys like T. Higgins and Tyler Boyd, because he will have worked so much already with Joe Burrow.
We'll get back to Lindsay Patterson's exclusive interview with Peter King in just a second right here on Cincinnati Bengals Talk. But I have to tell you about MyBookie, because MyBookie.ag is the place to go to bet on all of your favorite sports, on all of your favorite games, and prop bets. So whether you want to wager on Joe Burrow winning multiple awards. Maybe Comeback Player of the Year, MVP. Maybe it's Jamar Chase, an Offensive Rookie of the Year. You can do all of that and so much more at mybookie.ag. And right now, just because you're watching, you're going to double your first deposit when you go there with promo code Bengals Talk. That's it. It's free money. You can double that first deposit. So if you make a $50 deposit, turn it into $100 right now with Bengals Talk. Again, use that promo code Bengals Talk at mybookie.ag. And it's not just the Bengals, of course. Maybe you want to bet on the Cowboys and the Chiefs as Patrick Mahomes and Kansas City continue to go on the uptick. And the Cowboys they've been great this season so far with Dak Prescott and company. Who you got? Well, you can make money because you're going to be watching the game anyway with mybookie.ag. So go there right now and make sure you double that first deposit with promo code Bengals Talk. MyBookie. Bet anything, anytime, anywhere with MyBookie.
Let's flip to the defensive side. We've talked plenty of offense. I've done that with you in the offseason and just in regular season. Now we focus on defense. Looking at the beginning of the season, you could argue that this defense was really surprising. A lot of their free agents, draft picks stepping up, still a young defense. But at the same time, they've struggled. They struggled against the Jets. They struggled against the Browns, even though the offense didn't help them much in the past week. What is going on with this defense? Is it easy as just learning how to tackle again? Is it fixable, or is there a problem right now and they're exposed?
Well, I would be discouraged at a defense that had shown such great signs and a defense that really frustrated. Think about, the quarterbacks they frustrated this year. Lamar Jackson, Aaron Rodgers, Ben Roethlisberger. They had some really, really good days. And then to see what Mike White did in what might be the only big game of his career, who knows what'll happen. And then see Baker Mayfield, put up 40 on him or whatever it was. Those things would be discouraging. But I think the way I would think about this is that, it all is going to start with, whether you've got two elements on your team. Number one, is it going to be 2nd and 3, 2nd and 4 all the time? Are you going to be able to stop the run? And that is something that they've got to be consistently better at doing. And then I think I have been pleasantly surprised with the amount of pressure they've been able to get on quarterbacks. I think sort of the bookend of Hendrickson and Hubbard has been encouraging. And so before this is 2 games. It's not 5. And look, I think this is a very big game for them this week, going to Vegas to a team that is really, really angry right now and is going to come out. I'm not saying it's their game of the year, but they have to play well if they want to be able to stay in the AFC West race. So this is going to be a game that you're going to have to stop Derek Carr from attacking both intermediate and deep. So I think this game, especially coming off a bye, is going to be a big tell for this Cincinnati defense the rest of the year.
I'm going to stay with the defense right now because a lot of talk prior to the season was, would they extend Jessie Bates? He wants to be paid like a top safety in the league.
Yeah.
When you hear people say Jessie Bates is not having a good season this year, what do you say?
I haven't really studied him all that much other than to say, in my opinion, I've seen over the years, a lot of times when a player is unhappy, and when a player essentially is saying to you on many, many levels that he believes that he should be paid, that he deserves a contract, all that stuff. I think it's something that you have to determine at that point. You really have to determine, is his performance going to be effective going to be affected if we don't pay him now, And I think that is a really, really interesting question. The thing that would sort of bug me, and I saw this stat, maybe it was the week they played the Jets, it may have been sort of a chyron on the telecast, I forget. But, he's always been a very good cover guy. And he was allowing a passer rating of like 105 on balls thrown to him. But, obviously, what you need to make sure happens is that you've got to make sure that he is in my opinion, part of your long-term future. And so I would hope that the Bengals would sign him. I think they need to sign him. I think what you do and how you stay good in a particular way every, year after year is that if a player plays well after you pick him, and this is 4th year in the NFL now, you've got to really try to find a way to pay him so that he can lead sort of the next generation of that defense, because he is a really good leader type. He's still young. I really think that they need to re-sign him.
When you look at the AFC North right now, it's a tight race. Everything worked out almost perfectly for the Bengals during the bye week. You have 2 losses, the Ravens and Browns, and then a tie with the Steelers and Detroit. That can't be too promising for Pittsburgh. You look at Cincinnati at 5-4. 7 of the next 8 are against AFC opponents who are fighting for a playoff spot. What do you look at in the AFC North, and who do you see coming out on top of it right now?
Man, it's a real tough call. What you got to avoid a lot of times, Lindsay? You got to avoid sort of the recency bias of saying, well, I've seen the Bengals the last 2 weeks, I'm not picking them. And then, man, I watched the Ravens on Thursday night, I'm not picking them. And boy, the Steelers, they tied Detroit. Oh my God, we can't pick them. And then you watch, the Browns in New England, which was an absolute disaster. I guess if I had to pick one right now, I'd say Baltimore, because I think they now, when I watch them play, I think they have a variety of ways on both sides of the ball to win. It's a versatile team. And now I think especially because they've got this little mini bye to come back from. And I think their schedule is tough, but it's manageable the rest of the way. I'd probably pick Baltimore to win it.
Have you ever seen a season like this, though? If you look at the AFC, from number 2 to 12, it's only a game and a half difference. So anything can happen each week, but it just feels like such a tight race that it's hard to put your tier 1, tier 2 teams right now.
I just think one of the things you need to do is not overreact to any one week. And it's why I just think that, and I'll pick a team, for instance, I don't want to overreact to what I saw, let's say last week with the Dallas Cowboys falling behind 30-0 at home, because every team, and losing to Denver, every good team is going to have a week or two during the season when they stink. That's just all there is to it. And so that's why I don't really go up and down. Like, I still think Tampa Bay is going to be really good. And, they've stumbled in midseason. And so, when you see Arizona with a backup quarterback looking fantastic one week, looking horrible the next week, you basically say, what the takeaway for me is, hey, they went 1-1 without Kyler Murray. I'll take that. And because I just don't think this year there's a super team in the NFL. I don't think, honestly, I think I'm right in saying that teams 2 through 13 in the AFC right now have either 5 or 4 wins. And so when that happens, when you see that, or maybe it's 6 through 4, I forget, but you've got an incredible middle class in the NFL this year. And it's a wide, big middle class. And so I just think you ought to sit back, relax, and enjoy the flight.
I love that. I'm going to end with one last one, and it's a national problem because we see it every week. And I hate to be this person. I hate this person on social media. But what is going on with the officiating, and can it be fixed?
I mean, I think if you rewound the tape of your life to the middle of November, every year that you've ever watched or covered the NFL, I bet you could turn on the radio and somebody would call on that night and say, "Oh my God, what is it with the officiating in the NFL? It stinks. I've never seen it worse." And it's, people, because you don't expect officials to miss calls that you can see on your television. Perfect example is in the Tennessee New Orleans game, when an umpire standing 5 yards away, staring straight at the quarterback, called a defender with a hit to the head of Ryan Tannehill. And it negated it nullified an interception for the Saints on that play. And Tennessee took the ball with a fresh set of downs and scored a touchdown. And so the official mistakenly, incorrectly, basically impacted that game by handing Tennessee 7 points they wouldn't have had. So it's easy to sit here and say, "Oh my God, this is awful." The officiating is worse than it's ever been. I guarantee you that in week 10 last year, you could find 3 plays that were almost exactly the same. And you could do it for every year. And the NFL is going to have to make a determination over time, because there will be a renewed hue and cry for full-time officials, which it might help a little bit, I don't know, but it'll also mean that a bunch of officials will quit. So they'd have to find a group of officials that wanted to give up their chosen profession in life and, to work 1 day a week on an NFL game. I think they would really lose quite a few of their officials. And they'd also maybe not have guys who would want to do this job for 30 years if they couldn't do anything else in their life other than study officiating.
Peter King, you have been nothing but amazing with your time. I always enjoy talking Joe Burrow, the Cincinnati Bengals, and the NFL with you. It's going to be a wild ride. I agree with you. Sit back and enjoy it. 8 more for the Cincinnati Bengals. They're back in action next Sunday versus Las Vegas. If you're an NFL fan, I'm not just saying it because he's on this video right now. He is the best NFL writer in America. Make sure you check him out over on NBC Sports. Thank you so much for joining us.
You're welcome, Lindsay. Thanks a lot for having me, and good luck.